I walked across the graduation stage by myself, my name ringing through an auditorium filled with families celebrating their own. 3 empty chairs waited in the front row, mine, untouched, like a quiet reminder of what I didn't have. While I shook the dean's hand, my parents were miles away, loud and cheerful at a Super Bowl party, toasting everything except my achievement. I held myself together until I reached the parking lot, diploma trembling in my grip. Something inside me cracked, and something stronger finally surfaced. I didn't realize it then, but the decision I made minutes later would alter every part of my future. My name is Annabelle Rowan, and I woke up on graduation morning with a kind of fragile hope I should have known not to trust. I got up before my alarm, nerves humming beneath my skin, staring at the rented gown hanging from my closet like a milestone I'd crawled toward for 6 long years, night classes, double shifts, quiet sacrifices no one ever saw. I brewed coffee in the dark kitchen, letting the warmth fill me with a tiny dream, that maybe, for once, my family would show up. I wasn't expecting confetti. Just a soft smile from my mom, my dad's lazy wave from the seats, my brother pretending it wasn't boring. Simple things. Proof that I mattered to them. The house stayed silent as I dressed. I slipped on the only heels I owned, secondhand, bought for job interviews. I checked my phone again and again, waiting for some sign they were on the way. Nothing. Instead, the family group chat buzzed with updates about their party, my mom proudly showing off her dip, my dad joking about this year's losing team, Mason bragging about a bet. Not a single word about my ceremony. Not even a good luck. Still, I convinced myself they'd come. That this was their way of avoiding their nerves. I clung to that fantasy like a thread keeping the day stitched together. The auditorium overflowed with proud families, flowers, balloons, little kids weaving between legs while parents snapped pictures. My row had 3 seats saved for the people I had spent my entire life trying to make proud. Seeing their names on those chairs felt unreal. I checked my phone again. Silence. My stomach tightened, but I forced myself to stay calm. Maybe they were running late. Maybe traffic was bad. Then a new photo from the party appeared, the TV blaring, my dad holding up a beer, Mason mid-laugh. The truth landed heavily inside me, they were never coming. Outside, the February cold cut straight through my thin gown. I reached the far edge of the parking lot before my legs gave out. I sank onto the curb, diploma pressed against my knees, the world blurring. Another picture came through, my mother grinning next to a tray of wings, my dad's glass lifted in celebration. Not one message asking how it went. Not even a polite afterthought. My tears came quietly, slipping onto the fabric of my gown. Not dramatic sobbing, just the slow release of years of being overlooked, dismissed, forgotten. I wiped my face and let out a humorless laugh. They'd skipped a once-in-a-lifetime moment for a football game they didn't even care about. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the crowds to disappear. Long enough for the hurt to sharpen into something clearer. Then my phone buzzed. It was my Aunt Helena. Saw the ceremony photos online. I'm so proud of you. Call me when you can. That simple message hit differently, it felt like breathing after being underwater. Someone saw me. Someone cared. I stared at it, breath fogging in the cold, diploma warm against my palms. What now? I couldn't go home and pretend this didn't tear something open inside me. I couldn't sit at that party acting like their choices didn't matter. Something had shifted too deeply. So I opened a travel app. Nothing dramatic, just me, shivering on cold concrete, scrolling through flights I'd bookmarked during sleepless nights. Places I'd always labeled someday. But someday never comes when you're always trying to earn your family's crumbs. My thumb hovered. Then moved. One-way ticket. Colorado. A retreat I had saved months before. And with that, everything began to change. I had always promised myself I'd take a trip when life slowed down. But with them, life would never slow. Not for me. The confirmation email appeared in my inbox, and I let out a quiet, shaky breath, the tiniest release of years spent carrying everyone else's expectations. For the first time in forever, I wasn't choosing them. I was choosing me. From the airplane window, Colorado seemed almost unreal. Snow dusted the mountains like powdered sugar, untouched and serene. I pressed my forehead to the cold glass, letting the engine's hum steady my racing thoughts. No buzzing messages, no urgent bills, no creeping guilt. Just snow, sky, and a foreign, liberating thought: maybe I didn't have to go back. The retreat was tucked into a pine-covered slope, its lobby smelling of cedar and citrus. Warmth seeped into me as the receptionist greeted me softly, "Welcome, Annabelle. We're so glad you're here." No expectations. No strings attached. Just my name spoken like it mattered. My room overlooked a frozen lake. The late afternoon sun made the ice shimmer as my shoulders slowly unclenched. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding myself for years. I told myself this trip was just a pause, a chance to recharge before returning to Hartford and slipping back into my old roles: dutiful daughter, accommodating sister, walking wallet. But the illusion shattered the next morning. After a massage, I checked my phone. 15 missed messages. 13 from them. "Mom, can you send a few hundred? Dad needs help with a bill. Mason, lost my card again." You know the drill. Not a single congratulations, not a word about graduation. Then Helena's message. "Belle, check your credit report now." My stomach dropped. I opened the app. Accounts I never opened. Loans I never signed. Charges that didn't belong to me. Someone had been siphoning my identity, all aligning with their emergency requests. The room felt smaller, suffocating. This wasn't neglect. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. They hadn't just skipped my graduation, they'd used my future to fund their present. I gripped my phone until my knuckles burned. Pain surged, but beneath it, something else awoke, a heat of clarity and rising anger. Not for their betrayal alone, but for finally seeing the truth. By the time I called Helena back, my hands were steady. "You need a lawyer," she said softly. "Someone who knows this territory." Her words were a blueprint. For years, guilt had dictated my choices, and love had justified harm. Now I understood: if I didn't fight for myself, no one else would. I returned to Hartford with a thick folder of bills, payments, and records. Clouds drifted outside the plane, calm, but inside me, nothing was still. The retreat had given clarity, but clarity didn't erase fear. I knew what would happen when I stopped funding their lives. What I didn't know was how soon it would start. As soon as I closed my apartment door, the pounding began. "Annabelle. Open this door," my father bellowed. I peered through the peephole. His face red with fury. Behind him, Mom clutched her sweater theatrically, Mason scrolling casually. "Belle," Mom called. "We need to talk." My phone rang. "The landlord. They want access." "Should I call the police?" "Yes," I whispered. Through the door, my father scoffed. "Police? We're your family." Family didn't mean what it used to. The officers arrived, voices echoing as my parents argued. They were escorted out, but their accusations lingered. I realized then, I wasn't safe with them anywhere near my life. The next morning, I returned to Carmen's office. She organized my documents methodically and looked at me. "This is enough, Annabelle. We can move forward." Within a week, restraining order granted, credit frozen, account secured. Fragile boundaries, but real. Then came Portland's email: promotion. Transfer. Fresh start. A city where no one knew the version of me who apologized for existing. I accepted immediately. Packing felt like shedding old skin, boxing up years of burdens I was finally leaving behind. I walked across the graduation stage alone, my name echoing into a hall filled with families who weren't mine. 3 empty seats in the front row stared back at me, colder than the February air outside. While I shook hands with the dean, my parents were miles away, hosting a Super Bowl party, laughing, eating, celebrating everything except me. I stayed composed until I reached the parking lot, diploma slipping from my hands. That was the moment something inside me shattered, and something else finally stirred. I didn't know it yet, but the next choice I made would change my life forever. I'm Annabelle Rowan, and that morning began with hope I should have learned to guard. I woke before my alarm, nerves buzzing, the cheap fabric of my rented gown hanging from the closet door like a trophy I'd earned inch by inch. 6 years of late-night classes, early shifts, and silent sacrifices had led to this. I brewed coffee in the quiet, inhaling its warmth, and let myself imagine, just for a moment, that maybe today my family would show up. Not a parade, just a small acknowledgement, my mother smiling, my father lifting his hand in that casual wave, my brother pretending he wasn't bored. Simple gestures that would say, "You matter. We see you." The house was still while I got ready, sliding into the only pair of heels I owned, bought secondhand for interviews. I checked my phone over and over, waiting for a message, on the way, where to park. Nothing. Instead, an old group chat buzzed with Super Bowl prep. My mother sent a picture of her famous dip, captioned with a dozen exclamation points. My father joked about which team would disappoint him. Mason bragged about a bet. Not a word about my ceremony. Not one asked if I was nervous or excited, or breathing. Still, I clung to the hope they'd show, maybe distraction was their way of calming nerves. I held on to that thought like a fragile lifeline. At the auditorium, families flooded the entrance with bouquets, balloons, and kids darting around. My row was near the front. 3 seats were marked with my name. It felt unreal, seeing them reserved for people I had spent years trying to make proud. I smoothed my gown and checked my phone again. Nothing. My chest tightened, but I swallowed the panic. I sat, staring at the empty chairs as the lights dimmed. A small, foolish part whispered, maybe they're on their way. Maybe traffic. Maybe. Then a photo pinged from the living room, TV commentary blaring, my father holding a beer, Mason mid-laugh. The truth hit like ice, they weren't coming. They never had planned to. The parking lot was harsher than I expected. February wind sliced through my gown. I made it to the back row before my knees gave out. One moment I was walking, diploma clutched in both hands, trying to breathe. The next, I was sitting on the curb, the world smudged around me. Another buzz, a picture from the party. My mother grinned beside a tray of wings, my father raised a glass, Mason posing like he'd won something. Not one asked, "How did it go?" Not one sent a message. The silence spoke louder than words ever could. Tears soaked my gown before I even realized I was crying. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet, steady pressure releasing years of swallowed disappointment. I wiped my face on my sleeve and let out a humorless laugh. I had crossed that stage alone while my family threw a watch party for a game they'd seen 100 times. I don't know how long I sat there, long enough for the crowd to thin, long enough for the ache to sharpen into clarity, or maybe the first spark of anger finally allowed to breathe. When my phone buzzed again, I didn't expect anything. It wasn't them. It was my Aunt Helena. Saw the ceremony photos online. Proud of you, sweetheart. Call me when you're free. Simple words, but they landed differently. Someone had seen me today. Someone who didn't want anything from me. My diploma rested in my lap, a question I couldn't yet answer. What now? I couldn't go home and pretend it didn't hurt. I couldn't smile and laugh at my father's jokes or Mason's excuses. Something inside me had shifted too far to slip back into place. That was when I opened my travel app, thumb hovering over flights I'd bookmarked months ago. Promised myself I'd go when life slowed down. Life wasn't going to slow down. Not with them. The confirmation email pinged. I exhaled, a tiny, shaky, real breath. For the first time in years, I hadn't chosen them. I had chosen me. From the airplane, Colorado looked unreal. Snow dusted the mountains like powdered sugar, untouched. I pressed my forehead to the glass, engine hum steadying my breathing. Quiet, for the first time in years. No buzzing messages, no bills, no guilt, just snow, sky, and the thought, maybe I don't have to go back. The retreat was tucked against a pine-covered slope. Cedar and citrus filled the lobby, warmth melting the cold from my skin. A woman at the front desk greeted me gently. "Welcome, Annabelle. We're glad you're here." No expectations. Just my name, spoken like it mattered. My room overlooked a frozen lake. Watching the sunlight glint off the ice, I felt my shoulders release bit by bit. I hadn't realized how tense I'd been holding myself. I told myself this was a pause, a reset before returning to Hartford to resume the role I'd always played, good daughter, reliable sister, walking wallet. But that illusion cracked the next morning. After a massage, I checked my phone. 15 missed messages. 13 from my family. "Mom, can you send a few hundred? Dad needs help with a bill. Mason, lost my card again. You know the drill." Not one congratulations. Not a word about graduation. Then Helena, "Belle, check your credit report now." I opened the app. Accounts I never opened. Loans I never signed. Charges that weren't mine. Each inquiry matched the emergency requests from the last month. Money they hadn't needed. Money replaced with betrayal. The walls felt closer. This wasn't negligence. Not casual betrayal. This was deliberate. They hadn't just missed my graduation, they had gambled with my future to fund their present. I gripped my phone until my knuckles ached. Pain simmered beneath the surface, but something else rose, anger, yes, but also recognition. This was the turning point. Not when they failed me, but when I finally saw them clearly. By the time I called Helena back, my hands were steady. "You need a lawyer," she said softly. "Someone who knows this terrain." Her words were a blueprint. For years, guilt had shaped my decisions, love had justified harm. But looking out at the quiet mountains, I understood, if I didn't fight for myself, no one ever would.